Hello, my name's Martin Hinchelwood, and today I'm going to be talking a little bit around the Professional Scrum Foundations class and the PSM1 assessment. Naked Agility is available for DevOps and Agile training and consulting. Contact us for a free consultation. Okay, so I have some things I want to cover. The two main things that I wanted to talk about, unless we get some additional questions, are the PSF class, how it works, what it's all about, and why you would want to do one, and the PSM1 assessment, which is the result of the PSF class. That is the assessment that you get at the end of that class. So first off, the Professional Scrum Foundations class, I think, is one of my favorite classes to teach. We work together in teams. So I just finished a PSF with my good friend Russell, and we taught 20 people at one customer. So it was a private class. We broke those 20 people down into 3 teams. So we had 3 teams working on the same backlog. So they all get given the same topic, the same backlog, but they pick a team mascot, and that makes each of the things that they're doing a little bit different. But they're effectively all working from the same backlog. And they actually build software in the class. That's I guess the crazy thing about the PSF is they actually build software in the class. I love that they do that. I've taught this class in Ghana for the Ghana Police Service, the Ghana Police Force. And I had police officers, line police officers, building software in the class that had never built software before. We do something super simple, and we don't dictate technology, and we help people out if they're struggling. But the idea is you're being creative, you're building something new and interesting. I think if I was teaching the police officers again, I would probably use something like the Scrum Tail board game. Something of that like, where the creative activity that people are doing is to create a murder mystery novel, and they do it in a iterative fashion. So I think that would be really interesting. But for this class, I tend to always default to building software. My background is software engineering. And it's I guess I'm a bit of a masochist. My favorite part of the course is when folks find out that they've got to build software in the class, and they have 30 minutes for their sprint length to build the software. The sprints, actually, the working part is 30 minutes. They have a 10-minute planning, 15-minute review, which is split between the teams because there's one review for all the teams, and then 10-minute retrospective. We are supposed to do 4 sprints, and when I teach this in person, I have managed to get through 4 sprints, but I think the most that I've ever done in the virtual setting is 2 sprints, and I'm planning to do something iteratively, making the class better in the next sprint. I'm going to work with Russell next sprint, next class, which is Monday, Tuesday in Pacific time zone, which is going to be fun because I'm going to be up late. At least Russell won't be up early. And I'm going to deliberately focus on just doing 2 sprints and see how I can change the dynamic in the class with that. We do a lot of really awesome exercises in the class apart from actually building software. We work a lot. I actually have one of the PCs, one of the exercises that we do here. Can I make myself little or just disappear? I can make myself disappear. There we go. This is the result of one of the longer exercises that we do, where we build out the students work together as a big group and in teams to come up with all of this information that's on the board here. So we talk about the three roles in Scrum and their core accountabilities. What we're trying to get to in this class is, let's make sure everybody has the basics solid. Everybody knows what a product owner's supposed to be, what the intent of the product owner role is. So then when they go back to their organization, they can look at what somebody is doing in that role and say, well, that's not enough. That's not going to give us the benefit that we're trying to achieve from this idea. So we go through the three roles and our accountabilities. We also go through the three artifacts, which is the pink things here, and their transparency. So something that I've been using a lot is transparency, past, present, and future for the artifacts, so that you have complete transparency across the life of your project, and that seems to, our product, that seems to work pretty well, and has a good explanation for folks. And then we go into the empirical nature of each of the events. And the thing that I think folks find super surprising about this class is the number of things that they find out that they were doing, or that they were told is part of Scrum, but is not actually part of Scrum. It's something that people do. And that's okay, absolutely fine with complementary practices that make things better for groups, but don't feel that you're forced to do those things. Scrum doesn't talk about user stories. It doesn't talk about burn downs. It doesn't talk about velocity. It doesn't talk about any of those things. It doesn't talk about standing up during the daily Scrum. These are all complementary practices that organizations and teams may choose to use as part of their endeavor, and it may work for them, or they may want to choose something different in those practices. So for example, what's a good one in you know, when I ask myself these questions, I really should have an answer prepared, but this is office hours rather than a presentation, so I just wanted to show you some of these things that we're working on. But having complementary practices like standing up is a good one that some teams use. I have heard of teams in Norway that do daily plank instead of daily stand up. It might work for them. It doesn't work for everybody. You don't have to stand up. The purpose of the daily Scrum is an inspect and adapt on the work you've done in the last 24 hours to plan or create an implementation plan for the next 24 hours. That's what it is. How you figure out how to do that inside of that 15-minute event, that's up to you. We can make suggestions as coaches and trainers. We often make suggestions on how to fulfill that. You might in your daily Scrum use the three questions. What did you do yesterday? What are you doing today? And what's blocking you? If you were focused on the individual. You might focus on the sprint goal. What did you do yesterday that helped the team progress towards the sprint goal? You might ask that. Or you might use a practice where you're looking at a board, a visualization of the work that's going on, and you look at the piece of work and have a conversation about how that work is progressing, and who's been working on it and what's been happening, and telling that story that way. So you can focus on the people, you can focus on the work, you can focus on the data. If you're using the Professional Scrum with Kanban guide and adding those Kanban metrics, you're probably going to be looking at work item aging during the daily Scrum. You want to be looking at is something getting close to our service level expectation. You know, we have an expectation that anything we take on, any piece of work we take on, will flow through our process within a particular time period. If it's starting to reach one of those boundaries, then we want to have a deeper conversation about it. We want to talk about those things. Other things maybe we don't have to talk about. They're just progressing fine. So this was a very useful exercise that we do. It takes quite a considerable amount of time, but it allows us to focus on what the events are, walk that flow, and answer the questions that people have. What I usually do is I give, well, we had 3 teams, so I gave each team, a team got the accountabilities, a team got the transparencies, and a team got the empiricism. And somebody from the team had to say what the thing was, what's supposed to happen in it, and then we maybe modified that a little bit, or we added more to it. And then as we added more to it, people started asking questions. And because they're asking questions, they're then, isn't the Scrum Master the interface between the development team and the product owner? Then we can have a discussion about that and figure out that no, they're not the interface between the development team and the Scrum Master. So that was a very useful exercise. It's part of a wider set of exercises that we use in the PSF. We had a lot of fun working through everything and figuring out what was going on. So let me switch back to me. I would like you to feel free to ask any questions you would like. This is office hours, ask me anything. So I'm going to talk for a little while. I'm going to hang out here. If there were questions asked between the last office hours, which was last Wednesday at 6, and this Wednesday at 6, then feel free. Then I will be attempting to answer those questions. And feel free to ask me any questions just now. I can see the chat, or maybe I can see the chat for each of the platforms that I'm streaming to. And obviously, if you want to ask me a question but not have anybody know that you've asked me that question, there's always this link here. If you go to nakedagility.net/ask, that is an anonymous question ask. You will just get a text box. Whatever you put in the text box is in danger of me reading out. So put in there what you want me to read out, and then I will attempt to answer that question as much as I can. As I said in my tweets about an hour ago, I'm happy to answer questions on any of the things that I deal with. I'm a professional Scrum trainer with scrum.org, but I'm also a Microsoft MVP in DevOps. So I have both technical background. I was a software developer for 10 years. I was a DevOps consultant for 10 years, and I've been a Scrum trainer for 10 years as well. So that experience of working with customers, both in the US, I spent 3 years living in Seattle, consulting there, and in Europe, where I've spent the last 7 years, since 2013. I moved back from Seattle, working across here as well. So back to the PSF. I just had a question that I had issues attempting to install the latest ADO migrator tool. Do you mean the Azure DevOps migration tool that unfortunately I built? Not unfortunately, it's a pretty good tool. Yes, I can probably help you with that. I would not be able to get into the technical details in here, but if you tweet me at Mr. Hinch, I'll happily help you out. I haven't heard of anybody else having any problems. That doesn't mean there isn't problems. I would need to check that out. Somebody's having a problem installing and uninstalling the Azure DevOps migration tools, which I did build. So I can certainly help you out with that again. Over here, tweet me, and I will directly help you out. On my website, there's also a chat button, and that will get directly to me, and you can use your email. Okay, Sherry? No problem. Where was I? Yes, PSF. So I really enjoy that whole aspect of the PSF, of level setting everybody. The class that I just finished teaching Monday, Tuesday, was the third set of 20 people in the same company. And we have 3 more classes scheduled now. So we're going to have a total of 120 people going through this exercise, build up that level of knowledge inside of the organization, and try and get to a little bit of a tipping point. If enough people understand the way things could be, and I'm saying could be rather than supposed to be, but could be, that they could get some benefit by jumping in there, then if we can get to enough people, we can make that change and maybe try and get it to stick inside the organization. So training everybody is really important. The organizations where I've seen they've had the best and biggest impact from this type of thing have trained a very large majority of the people in the organization. I did training in Utah for a company, and we trained everybody in the organization, from the CEO all the way down to the software engineers and the guy driving the forklift in the warehouse. And that really helped set that idea of how people should expect to interact with software, how they should expect to interact in that software development world. Even the guy who drives the forklift in the warehouse, he's a stakeholder to the software. They were building software that handled all of their, where everything is in the warehouse, their stock management, their inventory control, their web presence. So then when somebody makes an order, they handled the whole system all the way through, and that was part of their value add. And the guy who drives the forklift in the warehouse had a iPad attached to his forklift, and he had to interface with the software. So one of the things he learned going through the class was how to engage with the software team, how to understand why they might not be doing everything you want them to do because they have other priorities, why you don't want to be interrupting them all the time and changing what they work on, but also that he now felt empowered to give feedback, that it's expected that you give feedback, and we as a software engineering team want your feedback. And that was a very powerful story for them. So the PSF, again, is a very powerful class. It's really the 101. I want to start up doing Scrum. That's one reason to use it. Another one that I've done quite often with organizations is we already know Scrum. We've been doing it for a little while. We've picked up some bad habits, and maybe we need to level set again. So I've actually taught the PSF more than once for the same group of people, but with a large time span in between, maybe a couple of years. And that level set really helped solidify some of those ideas for that team. Cool. So I have completed that class. I have a catch up with that team in 2 weeks. And one of the reasons that I schedule a catch up with that group of people after 2 weeks, I call it a reify event. It's just an hour, but it gives them a chance to ask me any questions that they come up with and have an actual moment when they can do that, when they can get on a live call with me and do that. I'm quite happy always, and if you were in one of my classes, I'm quite happy always to engage out with those times. I'm always happy to answer questions. That's why I do this session as well. But the PSM1 assessment is what comes out of taking the PSF. That's the basic Scrum knowledge assessment from scrum.org. It's included in the PSF class as well as the PSM class. And one of the things that scrum.org has found is that if people that go through the class take the assessment, they're statistically more likely to pass if they take it within 14 days. So they want to encourage people to take it within 14 days. So even though, the token you get to take the assessment has an unlimited time frame, if you take the assessment within 14 days and unfortunately fail, if you don't meet the grade, then you will get automatically sent a second token to take the assessment, but only if you take it within 14 days. So that encourages people to just take it. Even if you don't think you're ready, take it within that 14-day time period, because then you get a second attempt anyway, and you learn something by taking that assessment. The first thing you learn is about your knowledge level. The assessment has a number of different sections, and each of them are scored independently, and you will see in your response which areas you did well in, which areas you didn't do so well in, and it will provide links not only to content, but the learning path that there is for Scrum Masters as well for the PSM1. So that's a pretty handy tool for you as students, is just take the assessment. It's really that simple. Just take it and take it within 14 days, so you get a second attempt in case you could just, I missed one question, or I misread it, and that could have been your failing percentage. That's not really fair. Whereas if you get a second attempt, maybe that will help you out and solve that little problem, which is pretty good. So if you're prepping for the PSM1 assessment, I send out some data to students at the end of the class. It's something that I try and send out the same day of the class. So if you've been through a class from me, you should have it already. But I send out a link to the Scrum Master learning path, which is a website provided. A website provided by scrum.org, and it has a number of different areas that you can dive into. So for example, one of my favorites, done, understanding and applying done. You can see that there's a number of different blog posts available. So these ones are blog posts. You can get additional content, obviously reading the Scrum Guide. Go look at the Scrum Framework. I'm pretty sure that will pop open the poster, or at least let you download it. Massive. You can print that out, massive. And additional things that can get you going. And if you're logged in to the website, which I am, you can go tick things off, and it will remember things that you've done, things that you've read, so that you can get a better understanding of those things. And that's a pretty handy tool. I like that one. It works well enough. I'm not saying it's amazing yet, but Scrum.org are iterating on that learning path, adding more content as it becomes available, potentially asking trainers to write additional content. So that's working out pretty well. And then there's some links I send around what is Agile, the Agile Manifesto, a list of the Agile principles, a bunch of Agile practices, that kind of thing. But fundamentally, reading the Scrum Guide is probably the most important thing to go read, and having a good understanding of empiricism. Scrum is really just an empirical process control system. So if you understand what is trying to be achieved with an empirical process control system, you can better understand Scrum, and then better understand implementing it, and better understand how to engage with people inside of your organization to help them understand as well. There's also a Scrum Open assessment. I'm pretty sure, there are open assessments for a number of the different classes. There's a Scrum Open, Product Owner Open, Development Open, Kanban, Nexus, Leadership and Measurement Open. That actually might be a cool thing to do in a live session, would be answer some of those questions. That would be certainly a little bit interesting. But those things, looking at the mindsets and practices of Scrum, the learning path, reading the Scrum guide, going through the material I PDF, the slides that we used, as well as all of the Mural content. That tool that you saw with the diagram that we built was built in Mural with the students. I PDF all of that and provide it to the students at the end of the class so that they can review that as well. Yeah, that's really that PSF and PSM1 in a nutshell. So the next class I'm doing is the PSF on Monday, which again is another private class. But I also have scheduled a couple of public classes as well. They're in the they're in the UTC +1 British Summertime time zone. You'll find them on my website. You can either click class schedule, but you can see they're rotating around here anyway. And I've actually done something that it would be good to know from you if it is useful. But I've put the UTC +1 in the title, so that when it goes around these rotations or it appears in Google, you should be able to see which time zone the classes are in. Now we've all moved to virtual. It's a little bit more difficult to see how that works. So I've put up two. Oh, let me pop over here. Two classes. I put up my. They're both professional agile leadership classes. I'm running them in the Edinburgh time zone, if that helps as well. The one on the 4th of June is going to be a standard 2-day class. However, the one on the 29th of June, I'm going to experiment with a 4-day class. So it'll be 4 half days. That might be better for some folks in the leadership role. And we're actually going to start early. So it's going to be 8 till 11:30, I think. So you're done before lunch. You can even, start checking your emails before lunch, and you've got the whole afternoon to get everything else organized. I would also be interested in feedback on that as well. So hopefully that will be useful. This session, I usually do, depending on the amount of content and questions that I've got. I might do an hour, I might do half an hour. We're coming up on the half hour, and I have answered the only question that I've had there, and we've talked about the PSF. So I'm wondering if there's not going to be any other questions. I can hear myself somewhere. Hold on, I've got technical difficulties. Oh, I'm a bit of a silly. I I opened up YouTube and I started playing this video live, watching it. It was just a little bit behind. Never mind. There is that. I also have on my YouTube channel, you should be able to see. I have I was going to be talking at an event. I was going to be talking at the Tekorama event in Belgium. Was in 2 weeks, which I guess is the 10th. I think it's the 10th, or maybe it's the 6th. No. Third, next Wednesday. So next Wednesday. What I'm going to do is I'm going to do the session live that I was going to do anyway at the conference, being that the conference has been cancelled. They're not doing the sessions online, they're just doing a bunch of workshops. So I would encourage you to go look at the Techorama website and see what workshops they're running. There could be something super interesting in there. They have a number of workshops. But I'm going to be talking about live site culture and site reliability engineering from the Azure DevOps team at Microsoft. And I'm going to talk about that next Wednesday during the day, about 2 p.m. British Summer Time. So if that is everything, I am super glad that you managed to view some of this and I got a question answered. So I hope that this was useful. If you have any additional questions, please make sure you ask anonymously here or put it in the comments for any of the streaming platforms, and I will be notified. I'll get the question and I will answer it next Wednesday at 6 p.m. UTC +1. Okay, so thank you very much. Naked Agility is available for DevOps and Agile training and consulting. Contact us for a free consultation.